Good morning. Welcome back, everybody. Gosh, is it Friday already? It doesn't feel like Friday, does it? Week went by pretty quickly. Anyway, I'm glad you guys are all here. Let's make sure we're connected. Somebody give me a heads up that you can hear this. It says that we're live, but you know how that goes, right? And then we're going to get into something really amazing that one of you found. That'll make up a large part of the show. And then we're going to get into some other headlines as well. We're going to talk about monkeypox and some of the other things going on in the news. Now, the thing that we're going to talk about today that one of you found confirms the recent discovery that we made about umbrellas being an occult metaphor for a syringe. Because back when they were developing this whole thing, the Smack the Nation, we'll call it, in early 2020, the scientific community began talking about umbrellas. Now, this was shocking to me because we were just talking about all this, weren't we? We had made this discovery about this umbrella. Remember the spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down? And Mary popping you with a pin? And using her umbrella? Remember all that? Remember we found the parts of the umbrella that match with the parts of a syringe, a hypodermic needle? They share the same parts and pieces. Remember the artwork that we found in the New York bus stop that was a syringe as a handle and an umbrella canopy inside the image of the artwork. Remember the piece called the ferrule is in a hypodermic needle as well as the tip of the umbrella. Well, it appears as though we were right on the money because they were already talking about all this back in 2020. They were comparing the human immune system, specifically VIDCO-19, to an umbrella. Look at this. This is stunning. Now, the only reason probably why one of you realized this is because you looked back and were researching it and something connected for you. And you're like, I need to let Casey know. And you did, and I'm glad you did. It says here, the researchers liken the spike protein to an umbrella with the RaBiD at the tip of the canopy. While some antibodies do bind RaBiD at the tip, many others apparently target the protein's canopy, known as the N-terminal domain. They actually compared the spike protein to an umbrella and said that the tip was the part that connects to the cell at the site on the cell, called the RaBiD. Now, this is where things get creepy because RaBiD sounds like RaBiD, like a rabid dog, like rabies. All you got to do is add a couple of vowels in there and you have the word rabid, which again is everything exotic diseases that cause humans to go crazy and act like animals. They also call the umbrella spike protein a we can do here. All right, I kind of tried to reset everything. Let's see if that makes a difference. And then I'm going to show you the canopic jars. Make sure you guys are with me and try that out for a second. All right. Okay, so looks like we're okay. Let's keep going with this. Now, you guys that have come to the channel know that we cover these canopic jars very often, don't we? And we talked about it because these jars appear in these alien films, don't they? This is where these aliens emerge from. These canopic jars. Now I got to find where I put those. Let's see here. Oh, here they are. Now, let's pull up these images. These become the vessels of the Pharaoh, don't they? The vessels of the Pharaoh where they store their black goo DNA so they can be reanimated at the end of time, because it's always been about the Pharaohs versus God's people, hasn't it? That's always been the division. The Canaanite versus God's people. look at these canopic jars. So these become the canopy, don't they? The canopy of the umbrella. Now, what does all this mean? Well, let's back up a little bit to this particular image. Because the tip of this umbrella is what enters the cell. The ferrule of the umbrella enters the cell, which, quote unquote, causes the infection. And I say quote unquote because I believe this is much different than they're telling us that this is all about. They're telling us a version of the truth, but there's really something much deeper and darker going on here. We are the vessels, and they are trying to store their DNA inside of our vessels, just like the canopic jars, the canopy, the ferrule, the pharaoh, the Pharisees, hypodermic needles. Now I'm going to read this because this is very important. Human antibodies target many parts of the VIDCO spike protein. This is actually 2021. I think this was right before they launched the Sp1ke scene, so they were still doing research on this. For many people who've had VIDCO, the infections are thankfully mild and relatively brief, but these individuals' immune systems still hold on to enduring clues about how best to neutralize VIDCO. Discovering these clues could point the way for researchers to design highly targeted treatments that can help to save the lives of folks with more severe infections. And this study, funded by the NIH, offers a detailed picture yet of the array of antibodies against VIDCO found in people who fully recovered from mild cases. This picture suggests that an effective neutralizing immune response targets a wider swath of the virus's now infamous spike protein than previously recognized. To date, most of these studies of natural antibodies that block VIDCO have zeroed in on those that target a specific portion of the spike protein known as the receptor binding domain, the RaBiD, the RaBiD. The RaBiD is the portion of the spike that attaches directly to the human cells. This is the tip of the umbrella. As a result, antibodies specifically targeted to RaBiD were an excellent place to begin the search for antibodies. The new study, led by this guy and this guy, took a different approach. Rather than narrowing the search, they analyzed a complete repertoire of antibodies against the spike protein from 4 people soon after their recoveries from mild VIDCO. What they found was a bit of a surprise. The vast majority of antibodies, about 84%, targeted other portions of the spike protein than the RaBiD. This suggests a successful immune response doesn't concentrate on the RaBiD. It involves the production of antibodies capable of covering areas across the entire spike. The researchers liken the spike protein to an umbrella, with the RaBiD at the tip of the canopy. Remember, the tip is the pit. Tip is pit backwards. Remember our decode of Outer Range, the TV series, the Western? And we realized that the tip of the arrows is the pit, and the pit was the hole in the earth that was causing time travel issues in that series. Wow! So this is huge. This is huge, isn't it? Because it confirms a lot of our work that we've done. Now let me make sure you guys are here. Oh, geez, here we go again. There were some buffering issues today, aren't we? Okay, now it looks better. Okay. Great. I just had to kind of reset everything, I guess. That was so weird. I'm glad everybody came back, and I'm glad that there's no buffering going on. Now, let's go ahead and get into some of these other headlines. You guys, I grew up in an era where you didn't hear stuff like this happening with female teachers. Female teachers typically were the ones that were trusted. In fact, a lot of parents felt like they could rest easy. Or they were more, felt like their children were protected when they were with female teachers and caretakers. And now we live in a free country and everything. But now what the left has done is they've weaponized freedom, haven't they? Because they've said, okay, well, if we're going to be free, then we should be morally free to do whatever we want as well. Do what thou wilt. Freedom to make choices about our morality. for us believers, we realize that they've taken this a step further. On top of that, it's bad enough leading with immorality, isn't it? But then on top of it, there's the indoctrination part of it, isn't there? Remember the show we did on the genderbread man or genderbread person? And they were basically teaching children in grade school curriculum about choices. The genderbread person. Now, sadly, that live show that we did, which was one of the most important ones that we could have done to expose this, is sitting at like 6,000 views. For some reason, I don't know, maybe YouTube is, doesn't want that video to get talked about, because parents would freak out if they knew that this was being discussed at their children's schools. Now, personally, I think all of this has to do with the do what thou wilt philosophy. Be whatever you want to be. And it's lowered everyone's guard, hasn't it? And so now more things like this are happening. Now there's some kind of, something going on with this, because there's two teachers in the same area. Now when you read this headline, you just think this is another female teacher and a boy student, right? But no, this one's different. This is the same sex abuse case. Now, why is the question? What makes people like this risk it all for what is obviously an unsustainable relationship with a student? Eventually they're going to get caught. Student's going to get hurt feelings. They're going to, or whatever the case may be. Not to mention you destroy this child's life. What makes a teacher risk it all? Well, I'll give you my thoughts on that in my theories. Because I believe that the children have already been groomed to accept these kinds of relationships as normal. They've already been groomed not to tell because they don't feel like anything's wrong. Think about what's happening. Pansexuality. It means that relations with anyone who you feel attracted to, including adults. So what's there to tell on? Now in this case, this is an odd case because this teacher, she might not have ever been caught. How did she get caught? Well, her husband reported her. But if it wasn't for that, student wasn't going to tell, because according to everything that's going on now, you can do whatever you want. Adults included. Child didn't think anything was wrong with this. Do you see the problem now with all this? Now, the teacher obviously had a false sense of security, thinking that the student had been thoroughly programmed to never tell. She had the entire, programming arsenal behind her with everything going on in school. Let's read what's going on here. A former choir teacher of local high school is facing criminal charges after court documents say she had an inappropriate relationship with a student. According to the press release, New Wilmington Police Department investigation into 26-year-old Olivia Lois Orts began with the principal of Wilmington Area High School received a call from Orts' husband reporting the alleged relationship. As a mandated reporter, the principal reported the allegation to the police. Make sure. Okay, we got a good stream now. Police say they had held interviews with the 17-year-old student involved in the incident, who had officers that they considered Orts to be a safe adult whom they trusted and confided in. Student also said the relationship allegedly turned into a romantic one that resulted in sexual activity. Officers say that Orts communicated with the student outside of school verbally, via cell phone and through text-based messaging. Documents say a student allegedly came to Orts' residence after she invited them over while her husband was away on a trip. Gosh, can you imagine? I mean, I know what it's like to be in a bad marriage, but this is just devastating. I mean, can you imagine your significant other had a relationship with a high school, one of their students? I mean, this is just crazy. Officers also say the student returned to the house at Orts' invitation on multiple occasions to comfort her after her husband had discovered their secret relationship. They served a search warrant on May 5th. Was that Cinco de Mayo? confiscated Orts' cell phone, iPad. They believe that student and teacher began communicating over Spotify after the confiscation, and that code words were established to indicate if the continued communication had been discovered. So they were like deep cover trying to communicate. Over 100 messages were sent over Spotify. Wow. Ort surrendered to the police on May 16th, was committed to the jail. Bond was $150,000. Now, this is one of those things that we have to cover because there's a trend forming, isn't there? This is a symptom of this whole grooming that's been going on. It proves that there's a problem here, doesn't it? Now, she isn't the first in this town to go to the dark side. Second Wilmington music teacher. She was the second. Apparently there was someone before her. Let's read. While one former Wilmington area high school music director is waiting to stand. Notice the trend here. Music director, choir. This might have been some kind of ring. Maybe these investigators should investigate this a little bit deeper. Maybe there's something to this. Wilmington area high school and these charges. So, the second. Let's see if they have any information on the first thing going on here. So now you have to worry about this if you send your children. Look, you guys, it's not just the public schools. It's the private schools too. If you have the money to send your child to a private school, you might as well just homeschool them at this point if you want complete protection of your child. Because this is just getting crazy. Now, these are just the people that get caught. Imagine the tens of thousands. Well, I wouldn't say that many. But, hundreds of cases, possibly, and this is something that would devastate a child. I mean, you go through something like this, and guess what? It could change the course of your life. So, I mean, a lot of these children don't even know what they're going to be yet. And then they get some teacher, that steers them down a course. And so it's even more devastating because it's outside the norms. On top of it all, a lot of children at this age sometimes experiment, but then a lot of them go back to the normal, and they put that behind them, and then their life goes on. But you sprinkle in a little bit of this drama, and all of a sudden it's game over for a lot of these children. So, let's see if they mention the other case. Okay, here's the other case. June 2020. This was a man this time, Jonathan Priano, 37, former band and music teacher at Wilmington High, who was also accused of misconduct with various students. He liked to tickle the feet of some of these students. Now, I'm going to share a story with you. I'm going to go back here while we talk about it. And, okay, so my son was in private school. I hope he doesn't get mad at me for talking about this, but he shared some information with me about his high school and that one of the teachers there, this was a boarding school, got in trouble, went to jail. Now, he was focused on the female students, and there was this massaging and tickling of feet. Like, did anyone see this going on? He said him and his friends joked about it. The guy was creepy, and no one did anything about it. Where are the guidelines and rules about this kind of stuff? You shouldn't be touching any students in today's atmosphere of things going on. There should be no touching. There should be no one-on-one, especially at a Christian school. So, this kind of thing was even going on at my son's boarding school, which at the time, I couldn't afford that at the time. I think his mother paid for it. She was real big into the Seventh-day Adventists and all that. Interesting, though, that she ended up ditching them after the kids were out of school. She no longer goes there. And so, some of the boarding schools are sometimes worse because you've got a microcosm and these people are all protecting each other. Okay, they don't want any bad press to get out because then no one will send their children to these schools, whereas the public schools, they're way worse in terms of the indoctrination, but then you open your child up to as a target. So, I know this stuff's unsettling for you guys, but we have to cover these things, okay? So, let's move on. What else do we have here? Now, thanks to the subscriber who asked me to look into Henrietta Lacks. Now, this is a very important woman. And thank you for your persistence, because this is a very important story. Her cervical cells are still being used today to develop vaccines. Now, what I'm about to read to you sounds supernatural. It sounds like something from a science fiction movie. But yet here we are. Now, this woman died in 1951. Guess when she died? She died with 88 days left in the year. That's the opposite of my birthday, which is the 88th day of the year. Her birthday's October 4th, mine's March 29th. But there's some kind of fascination with this. Now, when you lump this in with the fact that a lot of the cancer research was done from these cells, not these cells, but different group of cells that you're not allowed to talk about anymore on YouTube, that also came from a black woman. Now we have ourselves something going on, don't we? What is the fascination with African American cells? Why are the cancer cell lines from a black woman, and now these cell lines that I'm just discovering now? Let's read this. And sorry to keep checking, but hold on. In 1951, a young mother of 5 named Henrietta Lacks visited Johns Hopkins Hospital. We're going to call it Johns Hopkins. With severe bleeding. Upon examination, renowned gyno Dr. Howard Jones discovers a large malignant tumor on the cervix. At the time, Johns Hopkins was one of the only few hospitals to treat poor African Americans. Wonder why? Why would you give away free care? Begs the question as to why African Americans are the ones targeted for, ending pregnancies and terminating pregnancies. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because, once the tissue comes out, we don't know where it goes. Right? Now the plot thickens, doesn't it? As medical records show, Miss Lacks began undergoing radium treatments for her cervical cancer. This was the best medical treatment available at the time for her terrible disease. A sample of her cells retrieved during a biopsy were sent to Dr. George Gay's nearby tissue lab. For years, Dr. Gay, a prominent cancer and virus researcher, had been collecting cells from all patients, regardless of their race. See, notice how they're trying to justify why they took her cells. Oh, regardless of race. You see how they're trying too hard here? This reveals that something else is afoot here. Who came to the Johns Hopkins Hospital with cervical cancer, but each sample quickly died in Dr. Gay's lab. So all the other colors died very quickly, except for Henrietta Lacks. They were unlike any others he had ever seen. Where other cells would die, Miss Lacks' cells doubled every 20 to 24 hours. Today, these incredible cells, nicknamed HeLa cells from the first 2 letters of her name, are used to study the effects of toxins, drugs, hormones, and viruses on the growth of cancer cells without experimenting on humans. You guys, this is creepy. Cells that have been reproducing since the whenever. They're still using them. They have been used to test the effects of radiation and poisons, to study the human genome, to learn about how viruses work, and play a crucial role in the development of polio and vidco vaccines. She passed away with 88 days left in the year at the age of 31. Although these are the first cells that could be easily shared and multiplied in the lab setting, Johns Hopkins has never sold or profited from the discovery. See how they're trying too hard? And does not own the rights to the HeLa cell line. They offer the cells freely and widely for scientific research. I bet you if one of us asked for it and go, we want to look at this and see what the heck is going on, I doubt that they would give us these for our research. Then they, of course, they like to make these people heroes after they've exploited them, don't they? And so here's the hero worship here. So this is the story of Henrietta Lacks, and thanks again to the subscriber that asked me to take another look at this, because this is very interesting. Check in with you guys and we'll move along with our next story. Now the next story is UFO Disclosure from Congress. Now they like to, release this stuff and disclose it from time to time. Let's take a look here. Congress dives into UFOs, but no signs of extraterrestrials. Now, I'm not all into this. I know some people are into the UFOs. I know the YouTube channels that cover UFOs have millions and millions of subscribers because people are fascinated with this. I think they're all demons, and this is all, and a lot of it is probably secret programs by the government to appear like UFOs, and this will be part of the Great Deception. But I will cover this. Congress held its first hearing in half a century on unidentified flying objects, and no, there's still no government confirmation of extraterrestrial life. Pentagon officials did not disclose additional information from their ongoing investigation of hundreds of unexplained sightings in the sky, but they said they had picked a director for a new task force to coordinate data collection efforts on what the government has officially labeled unidentified aerial phenomenon. So there's the update. They've got it. They're going to actually seriously look at all this, collect reports, and figure out how to deal with it. Now, this next story is hilarious because here we go with the Bushisms, right? Remember, fool me once, shame on you. Remember that? Well, here he goes again, sticking his foot in his mouth, but he's actually telling the truth, as he calls his own invasion unjustified and brutal, when he really meant to say new crane. Well, sometimes I think the Lord speaks through these people to tell the truth. It comes into the body and basically kicks the demon's butt, whatever demon's inside of these people. And then the truth comes out. The Freudian slip, right? Brutal and unjustified, correcting himself to say he meant to refer to Russia's invasion of the Stu crane. Made the comments in a speech during an event in Dallas. Wow. Well, thank the Lord that he finally told the truth. Now let's switch gears here. Africa. The VidCo-19 smack scene never really caught on there, did it? And who knows the reasons why. We do know that the WHO was giving it away for free, offering to fly it in, but the African people did not pick up on this, and neither did their governments. I'm sure the WHO and the world governments probably tried to throw a lot of money at these African leaders to get their people smack-the-nated. Now, here's the question. The death rates due to VidCo are a fraction of what they are in countries with over 70% smack-the-nation rates. Why is that the case in Africa? Why are the death rates so much lower? How can this be? Let's read this. See if they even mention this glaring fact in plain sight. One woman in this clinic waiting her husband to get the smack-the-nated, fully aware of the dangers of measles, the high fever, the rash, the risk to eyesight. But VidCo-19, she has never heard of a single case. Oh, perception that VidCo-19 doesn't pose a significant threat is common in Ghana's capital and elsewhere in Africa, whose youthful populace has suffered a fraction of the casualties. Oh, so they do admit it here. Don't you think every single epidemiologist in the entire world would be over there right now trying to study this, we never ever hear a mention of this. All we hear is criticism that they're not getting the smack scene. That's all we hear about Africa in the mainstream news. They don't talk about the miracle that just happened before their eyes. Oh, they say they've been spared up until now. Okay. Wow. Unbelievable. Only 17% of Africa's 1.3 billion is fully smack-linated versus the 70% in other countries. They're saying that the rich nations hoarded supply last year. That's not what happened. They were begging Africa to take these shipments. That's what happened. And you can look back, fact-checking this video, you can look back at the headlines. Them trying, begging Africa to take these shipments. It was called the COVAX. That was the one that they were trying to push on to Africa. And so I don't know what this article is talking about, but the proof is in the history of all this. So this is what's going on in Africa. Now, someone else asked me to cover Jamaica and what's been going on. A bunch of teachers are dropping out. This is crazy. Another teacher has died, as Jamaica is having its own epidemic of a different kind. Teachers dying right and left. President of the Jamaica's Teachers Association, Winston Smith, has expressed concerns about the sudden surge in deaths among teachers, the latest one being reported on Wednesday. Jennifer Giddon, acting principal and vice principal of Charlemont High School, passed away on Wednesday, bringing the number of educators who have died in the last 8 days to 6. There might even be more, but as of this article, there were 6 teachers that had died. Makes you wonder what's going on here. Oh, I don't know. There's really no clues as to why this is happening in Jamaica, but I have some Jamaican heritage, so this concerns me. So that's what's going on in Jamaica. And again, thanks to the subscriber who asked me to cover this story. Now, this next story is funny. This makes me laugh. Because did you know that half of Bo Jiven's Twitter followers are fake? I mean, I can't even believe he got the subscribers he did. But he has, I guess it says here, 20 million, 22 million, and half of them are fake. So there's 10 million people in this country who hate Trump enough to sign up to Bo Jiven's Twitter account. And that sounds about right. There's probably about 10 million people who hate Trump that much because they didn't, go on to Twitter and subscribe to Bo Jiven because he's such a great speaker, or because he never does gaffes, or because he's doing such a great job with the country. My guess is probably much higher than this. So how did they figure this out? Well, there was this tool, the software company that provided this tool. They can go into an account and they type in all these algorithms to figure out how many of the followers are real and how many are fake. They use a number of different factors, including location, profile images, default profile images, new users, and things like this. And that's how they determined that half of his followers are fake. Look at him. He looks like he's, I won't say what he looks like, but they call it a crappit hole for a reason, don't they? The crapper hole. Anyway, enough of that. Now, here's our most important story for today. I saved the best for last. Make sure you guys are with me. Normally, we don't check back this often, but we had initial problems with the stream that it seems to have now been resolved. But as you know, we are experiencing a Monkey Pox outbreak. It seems to be gaining steam. I didn't report on it right away because it was a few cases here and there. But those of you that have been following the channel for at least the last couple years, you'll remember that we were talking about monkeys and apes. Did a lot of videos on the Planet of the Apes series, didn't we? That connected the past to the present. And in those videos, we compared modern humanity to the Planet of the Apes. Now, just a few days ago, I did a recap show on those older videos. So that's probably the one you want to watch if you want to get caught up to speed. Because we also tied in VidCode 19 and the current spam-demic with all this as well. We talked about the simian virus and the simian flu that infected the polio smack scene, didn't we? Well, it appears as though the elite are continuing this theme of the apes with this newest outbreak. Now, here are some things I noticed. One of these outbreaks centered around tracked the origins of Lyme disease. And we looked at how it spread, where it started, where it spread to. There was a very specific map. And it seemed to start very close to this primate research facility. And in that video, we thought about a scenario. A scenario in which monkeys escape. Where do they head to? They head to the water, right? Research facility somewhere here in Wisconsin. I believe it's Wisconsin, yeah. Look at this. The outbreak happened Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. This is the 2003 monkeypox outbreak. When you look at the map, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. So you can almost make out the path from here going down here. So how would this happen? Well, the scenario we talked about, again, this is a theory, a scenario. We don't know this to be true, but a monkey escapes, right? And what do? Well, monkeys get ticks too, don't they? They get bit by a tick. The ticks bite the deer. The deer migrate. Where would deer migrate? Well, there's millions of deer all around here. They can't go through the Great Lakes, so they go right around down here. They probably go east. This is probably a deer migration route, right around down through here. Now, I don't know that, but I'm guessing this might be a deer migration route, like a corridor. Well, then what happens is the deer are infected. The ticks then bite the humans, and here you have the perfect vector. All beginning in the Primate Research Center for Lyme disease and also for monkeypox. Weird, right? So, you guys understand that these are modern diseases, aren't they? These are modern diseases. Lyme disease only happened in the 1970s or 80s is when they found the first cases of Lyme disease. That was never a thing before. And a monkeypox, same thing. First reported cases, I think, let's see, let's go back to this Wikipedia article here. Wow, yeah, 2003 U.S. outbreak was the first outbreak. This is unbelievable. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, now they try to blame it on Africa, because they always do, right? All cases were traced to the Gambian pouched rat, ordered from Accra, Ghana in 2003 by Texas Exotic Animal Distributor. Okay, can you show me this rat and it's infected with the monkeypox? I'd like to see that rat. So then the African outbreak didn't happen until a decade later. But they blame Africa, even though the first outbreak was in America. Weird. Let me see. Let's make sure that that's correct. I don't want to give you guys misinformation. Yeah. First outbreak was in the U.S., really close to this primate research center. Now, we just had the escaped monkeys, of course. Where was that? Pennsylvania? We have a case in Massachusetts right now for the monkeypox. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Let's go down here. Sorry for getting dizzy. So here's the 2022 outbreak. It's global now. And it says here Massachusetts. This was just a few days ago. May 18th. Case was confirmed after a man traveled to Canada. Interesting. So, a lot of this stuff is started in the U.S. And, of course, they're going to blame Africa. Here's the map here. A Lyme Disease Association for Lyme Disease. 1990 to 2017. As you can see, Wisconsin ranks #1. You got Pennsylvania over here ranking in the top 10 of places where they have the most cases of Lyme disease. And then, of course, all of these states along the eastern seaboard: New Jersey, Connecticut, that's where I'm at right now, Massachusetts, New York. Wow. So you can almost follow the path, can't you? Almost follow the path. Now, let me go back in here, see what you guys are up to on this Friday. I appreciate everybody showing up today. Normally Fridays are light days, but we got past the initial issues with the stream. Let's do a little Q&A with you guys for a little bit. Uh-oh. Wow, lots of problems today, aren't we? Total censorship. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Wonder when that happened. Hopefully not too long ago. Anyway, you guys, let's do a little Q&A and just make sure you guys are with me. Problems. Nothing new under the sun. Cover up. East Coast, Pennsylvania. Yes. 12 monkeys. Yep, 2 times today, T-Cur. Notice it's always the shows with the most profound information. Yes, the whole Plum Island origination as well. That could have been part of it. But notice all the cases are between Plum Island and between the primate research facility in Wisconsin. It tells you everything you need to know right there. But they're probably migrating back and forth between the 2 research facilities. Wow. Well, when this plays back, I'll play this back, this live show, and see if the anything got dropped out. If it got dropped out, I'll redo the show. I hate to have to redo it, but this is very important. So, moving to Arkansas. Yeah, we got censored, didn't we? Notice they couldn't just drop the stream because we didn't say anything that was, we're just analyzing stuff. All right, you guys. Well, I love each and every one of you. We're going to go ahead and end the show here since we got cut off so many times. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys over the weekend or Monday. Take care and be safe, you guys.